Good evening and welcome to lifeTUPOPYENI, the program where we tackle important issues that affect our communities and our nation. Now imagine for a moment that someone you love is waiting for a phone call, a call that could mean the difference between life and death. Somewhere else, another family is making one of the most difficult decisions of their lives. Through organ donation, one family's loss can become another family's hope. Yet despite remarkable advances in medicine, thousands of people around the world continue to wait for life-saving transplants. Now, many never receive one, not only because of medical limitations, but also because of fear, misinformation, and a lack of understanding about organ donations. Now, tonight we discuss organ donation, giving the gift of life. Our aim is to provide accurate information, clear up misconceptions, and encourage meaningful conversations that could ultimately help save lives. I'm your host, Josie Pandwa, and welcome to lifeTUPOPYENI. We'll be right back after the short break.
What happens when the only thing standing between life and death is a donor? Every day, people wait for the call that could save their lives. Many never receive it.
Welcome back. Now, tonight, our panel of experts is here to help us better understand the importance of organ donations, how the donation works, and why informed decisions can ultimately help save lives. Allow me to welcome our distinguished guests. First up on our panel, Senior Lecturer in Anatomy at the University of Namibia, Dr. Anneli Poolman. Welcome to lifeTUPOPYENI.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Also on our panel, specialist nephrologist and physician, Dr. Glendah Kalunga. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Joining us as well, amongst all of these beautiful women, Acting Chief Medical Officer at the Windhoek Central Hospital under the Ministry of Health Social Services, Dr. Byron Bock. Welcome, Dr. Bock.
Good evening and thank you for having us.
And last but definitely not least, traveling all the way from Ongwediva for this very important conversation, transplant coordinator at Ongwediva Medi Park, Sister Kim Krimble. Welcome to lifeTUPOPYENI. Joining us.
Good evening. Thanks so much for the invite.
Now, before we do continue with our discussion, organ donation is often described as the gift of life, a decision that can give someone else a second chance. But how much do we really know about organ donations? Well, tonight, before we get into our discussion, we took to the streets to find out what people know and perhaps what they don't know about organ donations. Let's take a look at what they had to say, and then we'll come back to our panel to unpack some of these responses.
Organ donation is all about donating your organs to the hospital or like donating it to School of Med for practicals and all that.
In my opinion, I think it's more about willingly donating not your entire body, but a part of your body, for a better cause.
In my own simple terms, I would say organ donation is when you're giving your organs to someone just to donate to save someone's life.
Organ donation is just to give out freely your organ that you prefer to donate. Yeah.
Well, organ donation, in my opinion, is a very good thing for us to do. Because by that, you save somebody else's life.
From my understanding on organ donations is that, let's say someone is missing an organ or they're in dire need of an organ transplant, right? And I mean, you guys are matched in blood types, right? And if they would need that organ, you'd have to donate it to them for probably a certain fee or just out of the willingness of your heart.
When somebody's life comes to an end, and his eyes or his heart or kidneys or whatever is useful to be able to donate to somebody else to have a good and a prosperous life.
I'm not sure, but I think I might be willing to if it's a close person to my heart like that or a family member. If it's a stranger, I'm not sure. Because that would be like risking my life and my health also, in a way, right?
It depends on the type of organ. For livers, I would donate like a liver or kidney, but when it comes to hands and other things, unfortunately, I don't think so.
I will donate my organs if that can change. If that can change a family member or a friend's life, of course I would consider that. That is not such a big thing to ask. It's a normal thing to ask. And in that I will fulfill what God asked me to do, to love my neighbor as myself.
So I'm a person who believes that after death, the body is just something that's waiting to decay. So it's better to, use it to help someone else who's still living. So yes, I believe that, I would do it actually.
Plus, also, I think it's a cultural taboo from my culture. I'm not sure, but I might think it's a cultural taboo. Because we Heroes, we believe in getting buried to where you come from. So now, giving your whole body for studies is a bit weird.
I would consider donating my organs to someone because it might help her life. Maybe today it's someone else, but tomorrow it might be my mom that will be in need. So I think organ donation is a good choice for someone.
Because I don't know who will need this. Like, there are people out there that also need organs, so I definitely want to donate to them.
Okay, I wouldn't donate my entire body for science, maybe like just specific parts. If I am dead, I would donate a couple things like my heart, but not my entire body for, science. I believe I just have the right to body autonomy. So whatever my choice is for my, however I'm gonna be buried, that's just how it's gonna be.
The look of things, I don't think my family will want my body to be donated somewhere. They obviously want my body home. They obviously want to bury me and not donate it. So it's gonna be a no.
I wouldn't do it, so I don't know. I wouldn't do it.
I wouldn't consider that because that's my body. Like, it has to go back home to my ancestors, so I wouldn't consider it.
That is not a problem to me at all. To me, that is not a problem at all. Yeah, because they need to practice from that.
And the fact that we are now, as Namibians, we're able to donate our whole body to the medical school is a fantastic idea. And I would like to encourage our people to consider that. Because if your life comes to an end, then there's nothing that we can do. And it's better that you offer somebody else a second chance than your life to be put underneath or to be cremated. Therefore, this is my plea to our people in Namibia. We are quite a few people in Namibia. So if we can help other people to make life worthwhile, and your life come to an end, consider to donate your organs.
What happens when the only thing standing between life and death is a donor? Every day, people wait for the call that could save their lives. Many never receive it.
Welcome back, and we have finally heard all of the opinions on the streets regarding organ donations. A lot of varying, differing opinions. Some have cultural fears, and others understand why organ donation is important. But still, we have yet to understand what organ donation scientifically actually is. And I'm going to start this conversation off by asking Dr. Poolman as well as Dr. Glendah this question, and we'll start with you, Anneli. What exactly is organ donation in the Namibian context? What does that mean?
Okay, so currently in Namibia, organ donation only applies to living organ donation, which essentially means that a family member can donate an organ to another family member with their permission, which is where our sister comes in, right? So what people don't understand is there's actually different types of organ donation. We can have passed away organ donation after someone passed away, and some of the concerns we heard was that when I pass away, I want my whole body to be returned to my ancestors. Or, for example, the one patient said, I'd be an organ donor, but I don't want to live the rest of my life with complications. So if that's the biggest concern, perhaps they could consider being an organ donor after they have passed away. And that obviously is very completely different from full body donation for medical research.
And Dr. Glendah, would you like to add to that?
Yes, just to add on to, obviously this is a critical life-saving intervention where we replace unhealthy organs or organs that have failed with a healthy organ. Now this happens with many different organs, but kidneys are typically quite unique in the sense that you can donate while you're still alive. You can still donate a piece of your liver, and maybe a lobe of a lung can be donated as well. However, other donations require somebody to be deceased for them to donate. For instance, your heart transplant, somebody has to be deceased. So we've got the living related usually, but it can be anonymous. There are also people that would like to donate as a duty or a show of love for humanity. We've also got the deceased. So this is where somebody who's on life support or was involved in an accident and, you know, they medically brain dead, or there's no more circulation, the heart has stopped, but the organs are still viable because they've been kept on a support, life support system, and those can donate. However, in the Namibia, because we don't have yet a gazette for this type of donation, it doesn't happen. So we actually rely on the living related donors. And essentially, we rely on the patient's family, relatives, friends, but this is something important. You're saving a life. There are other organ donations that require, that can bring sight. So for instance, we've got the cochlear transplants, we've got the hearing. So all of those transplants, cornea transplants, cochlear transplants, they can bring sight and vision, sight and hearing to a patient. So those are all important and critical organs to discuss. And I think that it's time Namibia moved towards that. We can save a lot of life. It's also cost effective. Quality of life of the patient, the recipient, is very good compared to...
Now, sister, you work directly in this field, and I think the most important question to ask on behalf of all Namibians who like to make jokes in times of financial need that they will just go and donate a toe so that they can get a bit of money to survive the harsh economy. What can we not donate?
So I think what a very important message for our community is that organ donation is an altruistic act. It's an act from one person giving the gift of life to another. Okay, but we are governed by, there's a declaration called the Declaration of Istanbul, which governs transplantation internationally. And that declaration firmly says organs are not to be traded. You can't buy, you can't sell. So when someone chooses to donate some, say for example a kidney, okay, it is purely as an act of heroism, and it is given as a gift of love. It is a gift of life. One cannot trade So you can't buy an organ, you can't sell an organ. And I think that's a very important message.
Now, Dr. Byron, when we look at the Ministry of Health, right, as a custodian of all medical matters in Namibia, if we are talking about the legality aspect, because that is a very important aspect, right? Human beings and their organs are protected by the Constitution, and so the giving or the donating of a bodily organ is something that must be accompanied by legality. Tell us a little bit about where Namibia is in terms of who gets to decide once someone is dead whether their bodily organs can be donated. Can they do it prior to death? Can that decision be overridden? What happens in the case of minors, for instance? All of those type of scenarios.
Yes, thank you very much. I think currently where we are at as a country in terms of legislation, organ donation and transplant is governed by the anatomical donations and the post-mortem examinations ordinance number 12 of 1977, which is quite outdated. However, within this statutory framework, there are some provisions, strict provisions, especially ethical considerations that we need to adhere to. The first one, and I think the most important one, is informed consent. So you need to get consent from the person while they are still alive. Yeah. That is actually very important. Secondly is on the issue of next of kin. And as we have noted in the video and you know what the public opinions are, the opinion of your family is actually also very important. They also need to give some form of consent. That is actually very important. And then actually what was highlighted earlier by our colleagues, that it's not for business, it's not for sale. That is actually also very important. However, there is a need for legislative reform because this ordinance is quite outdated. It's of 1977 and it does not align with the current, the current international trends, the current need, as was explained earlier, what we have, by example, the distinction between living donors and, of course, from the deceased, and then what type of donations can be made by, a living donor and what can be made by a deceased. So there's definitely a need for policy reform, for legislative reform, and quite an urgent need for legislative reform, because without legislative reform that governs what we do, we cannot really move past, the concept of organ donation and transplantation.
Wonderfully said. Dr. Kalunga, let's understand the process a bit. From identifying who can possibly be a donor and what kind of shape, your body and mentally you should be in, to receiving a transplant. What is that process like?
All right, so that's often what sometimes discourages a few potential donors and also the recipients, because everybody looks at it as it's a quick fix. And I've got a potential donor, here they are, get me the kidney. But it's not that. So our first duty is safety of the donor. So yes, we've got the patient, we want the patient to get a transplant, but the donor is our first protection. We have to ensure that they're healthy. We have to ensure they're going to be healthy with one kidney. We have to ensure, of course we can't determine everything, but we've got to ensure from the medical perspective, from the risk background, from the family history, that this patient is likely going to lead a very good life even after donation. So we need to examine the patient, we need to look at the history. If they're related, we need to look at the recipient, what type of kidney condition do they have? Is it a genetic condition? Is the recipient likely, depending on how close they are? And then we have to then assess. So once we do that, we assess the patient, they're healthy. We need to look at also the surgical risks. So there we look at the weight of the patient. So we look at the BMI, so to speak. So is the surgery going to be easy to perform? Because we've got a cutoff on where, surgical outcomes are poor. So we look at that. We look at anesthetic risks. We look at the age. When we're matching a donor to a recipient, of course, with the live-related ones, sometimes you have no choice. We try as much as possible to match them close to the age, because a kidney also undergoes changes with age. So you don't want to give a young recipient an old kidney. It's not going to last them much, and it's going to have certain things that come with age. So we do that process, and then we look at, obviously, compatibility. Are they compatible? The blood grouping, is it compatible? Can they get a kidney from this patient? Because the risk of rejection when there's not compatible is there. Then we match the organs. We do psychological assessment, so we need to look at the mental state. We need to look at their social life. Do they have any recreational drug use, any history of drug abuse, all of those things? Because once they get surgery, they're going to need pain medications. That puts them at risk for relapse if they've got those issues on board. We have to assess, obviously, the heart, lung, the function. We have to assess the kidney function itself, depending on the patient, and then comes to the donor as well. So while we're doing that, we have to make sure we optimize the donor. So the donor, every time they're on dialysis, we have to constantly review them. They have to be at the best shape possible at every single point. So they also have to be within a certain weight. They also have to have all their metabolic abnormalities corrected as ongoing process. And then that puts them at the situation where once we say we're good to go, they're good to go as well. And then obviously they also need psychological counseling, they need to be assessed, psychiatric assessment, all of those things need to be done. And then we then do obviously the imaging tests. From the donor, we want to get the kidney that is, you've got two kidneys that are functioning together, but they don't give 50-50. So maybe one gives 55% of the function, the other one 45. We want to leave you with the one that's got the higher function. So we've got to do those tests because you're giving out your organ, you should remain with the better one. So we do that, and then obviously comes in surgical assessment as well on the recipient. And then once you get to that stage, you have to ensure all the criteria has been followed, then you book a date. So once you've got a date, there are certain tests that need to be within that period, so within a 6-month period. So sometimes because the process is long, we may need to repeat some of the tests. So sometimes that's a frustration where it comes from, but we have to repeat some of those tests. And then of course comes the surgical part. Pre-surgery, we have to decide what medications are we going to put you on to prevent rejection? How are we going to prepare you? And then once you get into theater, again, it will be the harvesting of the organ and then transplanting it. All those have to be timed.
Both of them happen simultaneously?
Yes, because timing is important. There has to be...
Explain that timing element, because I think, you know, we watch a lot of series like Grey's Anatomy.
Right.
It looks like, oh, the heart jumps out of one body and goes into the other. To the other.
So you've got the harvesting where you're getting from the donor. So now that has to also be timed. So everything is timed from the time you start the surgery, because once you remove all the blood supply and you take the organ out, already you've cut off the blood supply. So you're looking at initially the warm ischemic time. So you've got to keep the organ as warm as possible without the blood supply to improve the viability, but you have to be quick. From there, you have to then cool down the organ. So you use special cooling liquids to cool down the organ and then put it in ice. Again, you're increasing, so that's called cold ischemic time. So you're increasing the longevity of that organ before it's transplanted. Because with kidneys, you can actually extend it quite a lot longer than with the other organs. And then from there, you have to take it into the recipients. Now, the recipient would have been prepared already as well. So that will be ongoing as well. So they have to open up, prepare, they have to dissect out where they're going to put the kidney, the blood vessels that they're going to attach to the kidney, because we don't remove the other two that are there. We put in the third one. So then that goes into the patient, and as soon as they've done with joining everything, you have to see the urine. The kidney becomes pink, and you see the urine starts to be produced immediately.
What happens to the third kidney that's now not working, replaced?
No, so you've got kidneys which are not working, so both are not working. Now you get a third one. So that one takes over the function.
And the other one is just
the other one just
chilling,
sit there,
vibes. Okay. It's actually very interesting then, because these are some of the things that people don't know about. Dr. Poolman, what I want to ask you is from a moral implications sort of standpoint, right? If I am giving permission to donate, let's say, my kidney or my lung or my heart, am I able to then stipulate conditions such as you're not allowed to give my organ to a criminal, or I don't want to give my organ to a person of a specific race? Because you can imagine, especially if I'm a living donor, one would ultimately not want to give their organ to a rapist, but as a doctor, you have the responsibility to try and save the lives of any person, regardless of what their social standing is.
That's a really good question, but I think in order to answer that, that's a very hypothetical question, because the reality is in Namibia, our legislation is not in place yet. They are reforming it, but we do need to get the legislation in place. That's the first thing. Also, a lot of these transplants happen out of house. They happen at international places, you know. So it's very rare. For example, kidney transplants are underway in Namibia, and it's highly needed. But liver and heart, etc., aren't being done in-house yet. So, and then even if it's done in-house, we need a data repository. I mean, we discussed that we not only need to know exactly which patients we have in Namibia that need specific organs, and also, like Doctor said, we have to diagnose what the organ is. Is it degenerative? Is it autoimmune related? Can an organ donation actually viably save this individual's life? But let's say all of that hypothetically does get in place, and we do get our nation on board with this process. I think it would be unethical for someone to clarify that these are my stipulations for my organs, right? Because you would never even meet the donor unless it is a close family member or a friend. And someone like a criminal, for example, I think our nation can rest assured that if it is someone with a criminal lifestyle, like Doctor said, you don't just become a donor and get the donation, and you don't become someone who needs a donation and just get it. There are criteria in place. So if you have a lifestyle that is reckless or that is unhealthy, and this valuable gift is not going to be valued to the person who it's going to be given to, there is many other people in the country that would be happy to get that organ. So I think everyone can rest safe that, you know, the screening criteria would definitely be sufficient.
Sister Kim, when in the execution of your duties, have you ever encountered perhaps someone changing their mind at the last minute? And what does that do to the process? Because you can just imagine someone, you know, you were told that you're going to receive a piece of a kidney, and then at the very last minute, that changes. What then happens? And I think in the broader sense, I'm asking the question of what is that whole like emotional and mental process like?
So I think any patient who has a chronic disease is on a roller coaster of emotions. And often when kidney failure patients are considered for transplant and a donor becomes available or a family member steps forward, then there's hope. And that hope escalates, and you know, and people almost get that happy feeling from it. But as Dr. Glendah has explained, the process of working a donor up to see if they are medically fit, because the donor is the most important person in the process. Often we will find that donors, in fact, are not medically fit. Okay, and then we have to be able to then manage the expectations. But I think every person who comes through the transplant workup process, we reiterate, okay, organ donation, a transplant only ever happens when we're actually going to theatre, because the donor can still, at the very last moment, before they put to sleep, before for donation, the final question they get asked is, are you consenting to donate this kidney to your recipient? And if there's any hesitation, the process is stopped. But yes, and unfortunately, it happens a lot.
And what is the waiting list looking like in the Namibian context for transplants that happen nationally?
So I'm going to say to you, I wish we had a waiting list. Okay, and it's very much what the topic of this conversation is all about. We don't have national registries even related to how many patients are in kidney failure, how many patients are on dialysis, how many patients in fact suffer from cystic fibrosis or have lung failure, heart failure, etc. So we don't have a waiting list. And I think one of the reasons we don't have a waiting list is because we don't have organ donation from a community perspective yet. So we don't have organ donation at end of life. Okay, when you're dealing with a living donor, currently it's generally your donor is donating to you. We have broadened slightly. Okay, there's a program which is called directed donation, but it has to be a win-win. So my donor isn't suitable for me. Dr. Glendah's donor isn't suitable for her. Dr. Glendah's donor, if it's suitable with me, and my donor, if it's suitable to Dr. Glendah, then we can consider what is then called a domino or a directed donation. Okay, our lists and our referrals currently, unfortunately, it's still very small, because the more patients that you've actually got willing to participate, the easier it will become to find potential donors. Okay, but like Dr. Glendah was saying earlier, it's very important to remember, it's old for old, young for young. Okay, so the matching of any donor in an altruistic directed donation manner, the concept is same age group, okay, same blood group, okay, HIV negative, okay, hepatitis covered. So there's a lot of criteria that needs to be in place.
Thank you so much. Dr. Byron, from a state perspective, obviously we will take what Sister Crimble said and you will take it to your supervisors and say we need a registry because data is important, especially if we want to have more community participation. Now, I'm going to ask a question from the perspective of just a healthy individual who thinks, hey, maybe this is something I could participate in. When it comes to the issue of payment, is that an option in Namibia? Because what you also don't want to do is run the risk of it becoming a quick money scheme. And a lot of people currently look at donation from that perspective, right? So what is the ministry's standpoint, Namibia's standpoint in terms of remuneration for organs donated, if it's strictly 100% free, in the case where a family is maybe feeling generous to say, hey, you saved our child's life or you saved our father's life, are they allowed to financially compensate the donor and so forth?
Yes, thank you. I think if we make reference to the ordinance that we have earlier, discussed, that makes the current legal provisions, it is against the Act. It is not allowed to receive financial reward or any compensation for organ donations, even against the World Health Organization, which is the governing health body or framework. So it is not allowed to receive compensation for organ donation or transplants, by law.
I'd like to add on that.
Yes.
No, it's fine. You go.
So this is one of the questions I get the most since we started our body donation campaign 2 years ago. And thank you to our nation, by the way, for reaching out and asking questions. Even if they never became donors, at least they were willing to ask the questions and get educated, which is fantastic. Right. Biggest question I get, are we getting paid? Even beyond the fact that it is illegal. I just want to explain to the nation, because the next question would be, why I'm giving up this big sacrifice?
Yeah, what does the word donation actually
mean? Yes. So the reason is this experiment has been done. Hundreds of years ago, anatomists and even people, you could say, oh, we need a kidney. And that's how human trafficking, organ trafficking started, body trafficking. We don't want to feed into that. We are learning from our past mistakes, beyond the fact of how illegal it is. So the word donation really means that you want to make a difference in someone else's lives. So at UNAM School of Medicine, we don't participate in organ donation. We are medical training and education, but this is a community conversation that needs to be had on a bigger level, if on donation in principle, right? So we don't engage in that. But the organ donation it's something that is critical, and some people want to make a difference in someone's life while they are alive. They want to see the impact they have and be like, yes, I see that I saved someone's life. And some people want to know, you know what, I want to be part of a real experience. Some people becoming body donors, they understand that we are training hundreds of doctors that are saving thousands of lives. And it's a short-term donation, and you can still go back to your ancestors, by the way. It's just 2 years. All of your tissue goes back to your family, however you wish fit. Right, but other individuals, then again, they don't feel comfortable being dissected as a research specimen. However, they want to make a massive impact, because what people don't realize is you can save 1 or 2 lives while you're alive, but when you pass away, you can give your corneas, your kidneys, your heart, your liver, your bone marrow. Those are 7 people that you help at once. So it really needs to come from your heart that you really want to help someone beyond a family member. And from what I have heard, because many people ask that question, can we become body donors? Our nation has a big heart and they are willing to give that to someone else.
Wonderfully said. Dr. Kalunga, I think my question for you is the cultural aspect of body donation, because we've been talking about living donations for a while, but we want to also talk about what can help further science from a Namibian perspective, right? What do you then say to the general public, like those who were in the insert who said, I want to give my body up for donation after passing, but culturally it just seems wrong, because what am I returning to my ancestors, right? How do you bury? How do we have a casket viewing and so forth? So let's clear up those misconceptions.
Okay. So one of the things obviously is organ donation. So for instance, you give your kidney and people feel they're not going to be whole when they're buried, or maybe they'll bring a curse to the family, or they will not be accepted by the ancestors, so they will not rest in peace, and all of those things. So we go back to what act it is, first of all. So it's an act of love, you know, unconditional love. You're giving another human being that might not even have anything to do with you, a gift of life. But also if we look at religion, because a lot of these cultural beliefs come also with the religious background. If you look at most of the religions that are there, they all look at organ donation as an act of love, the final act of love. So they all actually accept and permit, and is part of their teaching, you know, in terms of being organ donors. So that's the other thing. When it comes to maybe post-life, end-of-life donation, where you give more of your organs out, a lot of people worry about body mutilation. How do they extract these organs? Are they going to just cut up the person? Will there be any viewing? Will the person not be in a condition that they can actually be buried? But they actually take very good care. So the extraction and the retrieval of the organs is very well done. It's very well thought through process, and respectful as well. And the person is patched up after that. You will not even see anything. So body viewing, burial, all of that takes place. The other thing, obviously, with organ donation and end of life, some of the concerns come with saying, if I'm in a coma or if I'm on life support, maybe the doctors are not going to do all they can to save me because they would want to give my organs to somebody else. Again, we come back to the most important: do no harm. The most important is a patient in front of you. The most important...
Before you proceed, because you're heading to somewhere where I think everybody needs to hear, but we do have a caller in studio this evening. Anytime from Tsumeb. Anytime you call is always a good time. Good evening. Good evening, anytime. It seems that right now might not be the best time, but hopefully he can call us back and we can take the call. Yes, please finish what you were saying, because I think it's very important that people understand the amount of good that we can do.
Absolutely.
And also your soul is one thing that cannot be donated or harvested, so that returns to your ancestors still.
Yes, exactly, and your shell returns. But so we take care of the patients, and everything is done to preserve the life of the person that's living. And it's only once the determination that they're no longer alive and they're no longer going to come back or to lead any viable life, that's when the decision comes in to say, okay, are you are you a potential donor, or are you interested in donating? That's when that happens. But also it's different teams. So usually the team that's doing the retrieval is very independent from the team that's doing the transplant itself, the implantation into the recipient. So there's very clear guidelines, very clear distinction, and therefore there's no crossing. And the doctor that's looking after the patient, all of that is very, very distinct, because we always have to maintain and make sure that we've got the patient's best interests at heart, and we do everything ethically.
Wonderfully said. I think before we get to closing of our program, because we are running out of time, Dr. Byron, which transplants are currently done in Namibia, and which transplants obviously are done international? And if I'm sitting at home and perhaps it is determined that I need a transplant for anything other than a kidney, or where do I go for help from a state perspective? And does the Ministry of Health help facilitate that process for the general citizenry?
Yes, thank you. And I believe my colleagues can also come in. I think currently we are running a transplant program, which is a collaboration, a public-private partnership. And that is one of the most important approaches to this, is the collaboration between public and private. So it's a state, it's private, but it's a collaborative approach to the pressing need that the country has. So there is that program, and I think currently the kidney transplant has been the most successful as of yet in Namibia. Sister Kim and her team has been doing very, very great, exceptional work where they have been, doing transplants for both state and private patients under this program. And the success rate, I think Sister Kim can add on after that. And we have achieved quite, remarkable success in this program. I think we've also followed of late the stem cell transplant that has also been happening, and that also gives hope again for our cancer patients. So when we look at the vital organs, which is now liver, kidney, heart, in the past, and currently still, apart from kidney, these are mostly done outside of the country, mostly in South Africa, mostly in India, and we are really looking into moving into a strategic direction of, workforce development, skills capacity, our own specialists and super specialists for them to undergo specialized training, because you do need additional specialized training. So the ministry currently also has, training fellowship programs in place whereby, super specialists are being, the opportunity is there for them to undergo specialized training, of which we do have specialists currently undergoing, specialized training for them to be able to do transplant, because you do need additional training as well. So definitely the efforts are in place from a structural point of view, from a policy point of view, from an infrastructure point of view, from a human resource point of view. And we are currently moving under the strategic objectives that leadership has provided for us.
And hopefully Parliament can substantiate that plan by working on the legality aspect, because that's also most important. Unfortunately, ladies, gentlemen, we have run out of time, but it's such an important conversation. I think perhaps, Sister, if you could just provide any information, if anybody out there would like to either maybe just donate some funds to assist in the work that it is your team does, or perhaps get more information on donations, whether they are viable or perhaps whether they need a donation, where can they go for information, very briefly?
So if there are community members that need to get in touch for more information on organ donation, the telephone number of Ongwediva Medipark is 064 232 911, and ask for the transplant office.
Wonderfully said. Dr. Poolman, very briefly, 30 seconds, motivation for all of our community members who can possibly help save lives by becoming donors. What is your sales pitch?
My sales pitch is make a difference. Namibia has a big heart, so please help feed into that kindness from your heart to someone else, and you can help in many ways, and we are here to assist. Reach out, ask questions. It's not as scary as you think.
Wonderfully said. Thank you very much for joining us. And of course, I am very excited that once again UNAM has brought insight on something that can help change lives. Now, as we come to the end of tonight's discussion, one message stands out clearly. Organ donation is about giving hope, offering a second chance, and in many cases, saving lives. Now, choosing to become an organ donor is a personal decision, but it is also one that should be informed by facts rather than fear or misinformation. Equally important is having conversations with our loved ones so they understand our wishes. Now, we hope tonight's discussion has answered some of your questions, challenged common myths, and inspired you to learn more about organ donation and the remarkable difference that you can make. Now, our sincere thanks to our guests for sharing their knowledge and expertise, and to you, our viewers, for joining us. I know that a lot of you would probably want to watch this again, so please do take note that tonight's program will repeat at midnight on NBC One, and you can also catch the repeats on Wednesday. That's at 9 a.m. on NBC One, and 9 a.m. and 9 p.m. on NBC Two. We also repeat on Saturdays. That's at 7 a.m. and 2 p.m. on NBC Two. Don't forget, we've got our radio edition airing every Wednesday at 8 p.m. on National FM 92.6. Now, until next time, keep the conversation going, stay informed, and remember that sometimes the greatest gift we can leave behind is the gift of life. Good night, and thank you for watching Tupopieni. Until next time.